11 days and counting to Election Day. Early voting going on just about everywhere around the state. And joining us now, a candidate for CD4. He is a former congressman in CD4. He is Crescent Hardy, and he joins us. Crescent, how you doing? It's been a while.
It's been a while. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. Getting all excited about Election Day and about early voting and trying to encourage folks to early vote. Give me your sense of what's going on in CD4. You and Stephen Horsford going at it. Give me your sense of where we are in this election.
Well, I can tell you since I've got filed in January to get in this race and been out regular, been beating the bushes, working hard, and this blue wave, I've never felt this blue wave that we've been hearing about nationally across the country. I think most people are still concerned about the same issues they've always been in this district, jobs and the economy and opportunities to live the American dream and national security, other issues like that.
Has there been a Brett Kavanaugh bump? Have you seen this in your internal polling? That after the hearings, people started to say the Democrats they made a huge mistake.
You know, honestly, the people I've talked to were engaged before the Brett Kavanaugh stuff. Maybe it's helped assure that they're going to be out there. People drop off right after issues, but I think right now the biggest concern is in my district is where the state's going for the future.
Tell me the issues that you're hearing. I know you give a great stump speech, but you also do a lot of listening, and I'm curious what you're hearing from voters. What is it they want from their next congressman in CD4?
They want good representation, and that's how I got involved in this race again. As you know, before I wasn't planning on coming back, and then I was asked to a number of times, and finally people are concerned about the future for their children, their posterity, and that's one of the things I'm concerned about. But the compliment that I've been getting across the board is our constituent services. We're second to none, I think, anywhere in the state. And people want their representative to represent we the people. Remember, I work for you as an individual, and I have well over 740,000 people that I represent and work for, and that's what they want, to go back and do the job. They're concerned about this continual infighting. They want solutions to the problems. I don't even think they really care how we get to solve one way or the other. They just want things solved. They don't like the vitriol that's coming out of this nation right now. I don't know how you solve that completely, but just continue to try to be what I call a constitutional conservative and make sure that when the majority wins, you don't leave anybody behind.
I want to ask you, your opponent is trying to disavow the notion that he went to Washington and became a lobbyist, that he essentially became a part of the swamp. Was he or was he not a lobbyist in Washington?
You know, that's part of the problem I have with individuals, that if you can't recognize the truth and just speak the truth, that makes it even worse for people. Stephen Horsford has lived in Washington, D.C., or in the Virginia area for the past 4+ years. He's been registered to vote in Virginia. His son just graduated in Virginia. His wife works, she's a teacher there, or a professor at the university. She's worked, I think, George Mason University. She's now up in New York somewhere. Stephen, if he gets elected, that's the last time you see him. That's what he was moved when he got elected the first time. That's how we beat him on the first go-around, as he packed his family up and moved to Virginia and very seldom come back. You can't represent we the people unless you're here and understand the issues. I was out in the district every time I was home. In that 2-year period, I only missed coming home on 4 weekends that I can think of or know of, and that's an obligation. That's a tough flight back and forth every week. So we have an obligation to come back here and listen to the people. That's one of the gifts that I have. I'm fairly opinionated on issues, but I make sure that I listen to people, and that's a gift when you can listen and try to shut your mind off to pay attention to what other people are saying and stop trying to come up with an argument right off the bat.
The president is not on the ballot. Again, Crescent Hardy, running in CD4, is joining us on our City National Bank guest hotline. President's not on the ballot, but is he on the ballot? Are his America First policies on the ballot? And do you support the president?
If you don't like the president's policies, then I guess you'll be showing up to vote against me, because I think he is on the ballot. I think that the people recognize, especially in this district. Remember, this is a heavy Democrat district, but people are not talking negative. I don't think they like some of the rhetoric. Maybe that's their problem, but I think they like the policies, the Republican policies, the way the direction the country's going. They want to make it so it's a little more secure, and so that's why I believe we're going to win this state back, not only the state level but also the federal level.
Hey, Crescent, let me ask you, early voting, and I understand extrapolating and doing all the things that the consultants do. What are you hearing about early voting in CD4, and what does it tell you about the election overall?
I really don't pay attention to the turnout and stuff until it is on November 6th. That's the final day. For me, I got to stay out and stay active and keep people going to the polls, make sure that I get the people that are going to support me out there. But things, from what I'm hearing, is looking pretty good.
Let me ask you, everybody is talking about the bomb scare. We have an arrest that's already been made by the Department of Justice, a news conference underway at this hour. I've got to ask you, is it going to impact the election at all? Do you think this is going to change anybody's mind? Is it going to get anybody to de-escalate the rhetoric? Do you think it will?
I really don't. I think that they're utilizing one side's using this to pump it up. I think that we all have an obligation to try to be a little more civil. That's one of the things that I believe in, is we try to work together. Let's disagree, but let's don't be disagreeable. Is where I'm at. But I'm really willing to stand at where I stand, even if I stand alone at times. So I hope people can become more civil.
I want to ask you about the caravan. It keeps moving towards our southern border, and a lot of people fear there could be a military confrontation, between the U.S. military and this group of 4,000 they're estimating now. How should the president handle this? Is a military confrontation the best way to do this?
First of all, I think Mexico should be stopping this first and foremost, right off the bat. This should never got to the point that it's at. They can go after it every day, and I think there's an obligation there to make sure, if they're looking for, what do you call it? I can't think of the word, where they come to get away from their persecution.
Oh, the refugee status.
Right there in Mexico.
Yeah, asylum, when they seek asylum.
Yeah, asylum, that's the word. Seeking asylum, they can seek that right there. Their intent's not to. They've already said that. They're coming to the United States to work, and they feel like they have it's their obligation and their privilege to come and do that. And that's not the way we come. To me, it's an invasion. We need to stop it before we get here. But if we have to use extra hands with the military to gather people up and send them back home, I guess we got to do what we got to do. I don't know. The president, there's all kinds of options, as we've heard on the news. They're trying to work through, and I think they continually should work through those issues and try to solve them before it gets to our border.
Well, and I had a chance to visit with the president last weekend when he was in Elko, and one of the things he and I talked about was we were essentially celebrating that the Mexican government had actually stepped in at the time. Then we found out that their federales were being overrun. He mentioned that we've literally threatened Guatemala and Honduras. You don't put a stop to this, we're going to cut off funds to your government. Is that okay to do? I mean, to kind of play hardball with them?
I think you have to use all the tools in your tool chest. That's one of the issues we need to look at. But sometimes we might have to make sure that we're not causing a bigger problem by doing certain things and making sure that we work towards that direction. I wish we could help people understand that they can stand up for themselves and try to fight back on these issues and help themselves instead of being overrun by tyrannical governments, I guess, so to speak.
Crescent, I'm going to give you the rest of the time in this segment. I want you to, if you want to do a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, whatever it is, stump speech. But what's at stake in this election for voters in CD4 and why they need to vote for you?
Look, if you want to look at the statistics, Nevada is a small state, but we are already become a blue state. And right now we're setting as a major blue state with policies that are tax and spend, open borders, take your guns away, all kinds of issues like that, that I have fear of. You know, the socialist state and ideal is trying to moving forward in this country. It's never worked anywhere in the history of this world. It will never work. I fear for my children and the opportunity and the privilege that I've had. I want them to have the same opportunity as the American dream. Crescent Hardy comes from farmer and rancher roots right here in Nevada. I'm a fifth-generation Nevadan. But you know what? I don't think my dad ever made $10, $15, maybe $20,000 a year in his life. But Crescent Hardy had sufficient for his needs. He had a roof over his head, he had food in his belly, and had clothes on his back. Those are the essentials, which helped me be very competitive because my dad taught me the value of hard work. I've lived and achieved the American dream. I've been an employer. That's one of the greatest privileges you have, is to be able to employ people and provide the opportunity to help them achieve the American dream. I've had the opportunity to be a father, a husband, a grandfather. Look forward to that, being a great-grandfather someday. Those are great privileges. I think that is an American dream. I'm not sure that my children, the direction we're going right now, have that same privilege. So if you want the American dream, you better stand up and fight for it. You better show up to the polls. You better choose the people that have good moral standing, I think, and also the ability to make sure they understand what our Constitution is about and what our Founding Fathers intended. Stop asking government to do things you can do for yourself. That's the type of person I am. I believe that we have a better ability to spend our money for the good of mankind than big government does. So I'm a limited, efficient government type individual. That's who Crescent Hardy is.
Crescent, I know we are 11 days from Election Day. We're in the midst of early voting, but I know there is still stuff that a campaign needs, whether it be money or yard signs or whatever, call banks, whatever. What is it you need, and what would you like from our listeners?
Basically, right now, every one of us need to get out to vote. We need to do all we can to get our neighbors out there, if it's through call banking or busing people or hauling people when they can't get there and finding out what their needs are to get to the polls. That's what we need, is that kind of help. The Get Out the Vote program that is implemented in our state, it's the strongest I've ever seen it from the Republican side, and we need to continue to strengthen it and move forward and get people out and understand how important it is. We all know somebody that probably only votes in presidential years. That's the greatest gift that's ever been given to anybody, is to be able to vote and to be able to pick and choose leadership that you feel will govern in the right direction. And if you don't like the way people are governing, then stand up and take the privilege. This is nothing I've ever aspired to do, but people all have an obligation to make sure they protect this religious, this privilege that we have to have that First Amendment right across the board. So.
Crescent, I have confidence that on the morning of November 7th, we'll be putting in a call to you to talk to the congressman-elect from CD4. Best of luck, my friend, and we will talk hopefully on November 7th in a very positive way.
Look forward to it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
There you go. That's Crescent Hardy joining us on our City National Bank guest hotline, running in CD4 against Stephen Horsford. The guy that, let's face it, he moved to Washington. He moved to suburban Washington as a lobbyist. No, I mean, it is what it is. Coming up, our wall-to-wall free-for-all.